Hey guys, what is going on? Andy Baker here of andybaker.com and owner of Kingwood Strength and Conditioning. And it is January now of 2018, and so we are going to start our monthly Q&A series here, where we're going to try to do at least one, but maybe two or three Q&A videos for every month. And I'm just going to kind of randomly pick some questions that I get that I think might be helpful to you guys. I'm generating questions from YouTube comments that I get on some of the videos, from the forum over at startingstrength.com, as well as emails that I might get, or questions from members of my online barbell club that I think could help a broader audience. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just kind of randomly pick 6 questions today. I'm going to paraphrase these a bit because some of them are get a little bit wordy. So I'm going to paraphrase some of these a bit, but I think you'll get the point. So first question was based on one of the most recent YouTube videos that I did on sets. So if you guys haven't seen that video, go check it out. But a video that I did on kind of set theory, which was the use of all the different types of sets. So sets across, descending sets, ascending sets, drop sets, rest pause, all that sort of thing. What they are, how to use them, that sort of thing. And I got a pretty good question from a guy. He asked me in the YouTube comments, for athletes, what type of set scheme do you prefer? And what he referenced in there was, do you prefer sets across or ascending sets for athletes? And that's a good question. Obviously, depends on the sport, depends on the athlete, depends on the athlete's time of year, where they are in relation to their their competitive season, that sort of thing. But in general, I really like ascending sets for competitive athletes, especially athletes that are in a demanding sport. So ascending sets have they have a couple of advantages over sets across. One, they're a little bit less stressful. So obviously, anytime that we're training an athlete, we have to take into condition the things that are out of our control as strength coaches. So I'm not always in control of, obviously, the practice and play of their sport. So I don't know how many times a week they're practicing, how many times a week they're playing a game, having to do things like sprints or running, or, just, something like basketball where they're up and down the court, that sort of thing. There's obviously going to be, the variable of fatigue can be pretty broad and wide. So a lot of times when I'm working with a competitive athlete, I kind of never know what I'm going to get when he comes into the gym. So, if they did a bunch of really hard sprints yesterday in practice, in a perfect world, maybe we would wait another day before we do our squat workout, but you just don't always have that luxury in the real world. So you're having to schedule your athletes on a certain training schedule as best as you can, oftentimes around their practice and play and that sort of thing, plus school and family commitments and all that. So the training schedule is not always optimal. So in other words, the athlete oftentimes is going to have to train in a state of fatigue. So you really want to have a training system that's a little bit flexible in what the athlete can do on a given day. So he's not always going to be coming in and operating at 100%. And when you have a sets across type system, where you're going to say, all right, we have to come in today and we're going to hit 3 sets of 5 at 300 pounds today. Well, maybe he can do that today, maybe he can't. So maybe he can do more than that if he's particularly refreshed. So maybe you're used to training him kind of always in a state of perpetual fatigue, and then he has a week off from practice and he comes in and his strength is up 5 or 10% just because he doesn't have that kind of backdrop of fatigue and exhaustion behind him. So the ascending sets kind of allows you to watch your athlete. Obviously, you're going to talk to your athlete through the warm-up sets. Hey, what did you do yesterday? What kind of training did y'all do yesterday, at basketball practice or football practice or whatever, and you're going to kind of have it in mind of where you might work up to. But then you're going to watch the warm-up sets, and you're going to progressively kind of just go up. You're going to accumulate some volume on the way up with the ascending sets. So whatever, let's just say we're doing sets of 5, which would be pretty standard stuff. Then you're just going to kind of work up in your sets of 5 with ever-increasing loads, and you're going to kind of watch the speed of each set. You're going to kind of watch for form breakdown, things like that. Maybe he's having a hard time getting depth. Is a sign that the legs and hips might be fatigued, that sort of thing. And then you can either cut it off at a certain load, or you can hold it steady there. or you can go up past maybe what you had planned. But the ascending sets gives you a little bit of flexibility. It's obviously not as fatiguing as sets across. So, 5 sets of 5 where you're building up in weight, 5 or 10% every set is far less fatiguing than doing something like 5 sets of 5 across where it's the same weight every set. So, it's a little bit less stressful on an athlete that usually doesn't have all the recuperative capacity of somebody that's just dedicated to lifting. So I like it because it's a little bit lower stress, and two, you can be more flexible in its implementation day to day. The other couple other benefits to ascending sets, it's faster. So when you're working with a competitive athlete, you really don't want the strength training sessions to drag out too much. Again, they only have so much capacity in there for all this physical activity. And there's the reality of the fact that, a lot of the athletes we're going to work with are going to be student athletes, high school and college, and they just don't have a lot of time to spend all day in the gym necessarily. So you want to have some sort of format where you can get them through the workout in a reasonable amount of time. And ascending sets are far quicker to implement than sets across, because those first, if you're going to do, say, 5 or 6 sets, those first, 1 to 4, 1 to 3 sets you can go pretty fast. Almost just as fast as it takes you to change the plate. So you don't have to spend a lot of time. And then maybe between your 4th and 5th set, okay, now we're going to take a full rest and make sure that you're completely recovered before we go into that one all-out work set to cap off the workout. So whereas in a sets across approach, especially if you're doing, lots of sets of 4 or 5 heavy sets, it takes more rest time between sets to get the full effect. So that would be a reason for doing the ascending sets. The other thing that I really like about ascending sets is that because those first few sets are a little bit lighter, I like to have a lot of my athletes that are in more explosive type sports really focus on bar speed during those ascending sets. So you can get a little bit of kind of dynamic effort type work, a little bit of explosive work with those lighter and medium weights as they're building up. And I think that's really helpful. Then you just feel like you're getting a little bit more out of those lighter sets. They're not just light, and easy. You're actually taking a lighter or more medium weight that's not as stressful, but you're making it more stressful and more productive by moving the weight fast and moving it explosively. As Bill Starr said in his book, was that he always encouraged his athletes to make the plates rattle at the top. And you can practice doing that on your first, second, third, fourth set, with those lighter weights. And then, when you get to the top set, you still want to try to push the weight fast, although it may not move fast because it's heavy. But it will train the athlete to move with a little bit more velocity and acceleration under the bar. And I think for a lot of sports, that's probably helpful. So I would definitely say on especially on things like squats, that the ascending sets is a good idea. So maybe not in every circumstance for every lifter, every athlete, but definitely something to consider.